Hello, everyone, and welcome to VidCast episode number 7. We've got Ella McCrystal sitting backstage, and then she's going to join me shortly. And we're going to be talking about all things success related. So, can I just remind everybody who's on that if you do want to ask Ella any questions, you just need to type them into the comments section at the bottom, either on Facebook or YouTube, and they'll come up, and then we can answer those questions specifically. And that's it. So let's bring Ella up. So, okay, Ella, thanks for joining the show. Hello, how are you doing? It's a pleasure to have you on the show. I know we're going to be talking all things like success related, but before we do you want to tell us a bit about you, what you do, the businesses that you own and things like that?
Yeah, sure. So primarily, my actual bulk of work is as a psychotherapist. But within that, I use resilience coaching, trauma coaching, and clinical hypnotherapy as well. So I've been doing that for about 15 years. And then about 6 or 7 years ago, I bought the Northampton Clinic, which is an integrative health clinic. And we deal with everything psychology and also physical. So osteopaths, massage, kind of holistic treatments as well. So really I'm juggling at the moment both the Northampton Clinic as well as doing my private practice and seeing my patients and my clients. And on the other side of things, I also have an online mental health course. I've developed a lot of mental health resources as well, which you can buy. And also I am a new author and I've just completed finishing a book. I'm self-publishing and it will be out in January 2021. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, but quite a lot going on.
It sounds like you've got a lot going on. So yeah. What's the book then? Just tell us a little bit more about the book, because that sounds really exciting.
Well, yeah, so it's called Wounded Warrior Wisdom, and that's because my background and really what led me into doing this type of work and being fascinated with the brain and the body was that I'd had my own trauma early on in life. I'd experienced sexual abuse in childhood, and it led me down a path of self-destruction. But through my life, I learned a lot about how to deal with myself, and then obviously trained and I've worked for almost 15 years with other people dealing with their issues and their trauma and their mental health. So because I always have been very, very busy in that practice, and I wanted to reach a wider audience because I have to turn so many people away. And I thought, right, I'll start putting together these workbooks and these resources, and then realized I had a knack for writing. And so all the wisdom, and I call it Wounded Warrior because I was wounded. Now I feel like a warrior, and I've got all this wisdom, I put it into the book. So it's a mixture of a little bit of my story, but the majority of it is how you can become the warrior and how you can use that wisdom to get to that place. So essentially, it's a bit of self-help, but also coaching in a book.
Okay, cool. And is some of that, because we are going to be talking about success and some of about being successful, it would probably, some of those things that we're going to talk about will probably be covered in that book, I would imagine.
Very much so. Yeah, but it's very much goal oriented, and it's very much about how you can break the habit of your old lifestyle and become that success. And actually the tagline is Dare to Dream, because you can be anything you choose to be. It doesn't matter what your trauma is, what your history is, what your ability or your lack of ability is at this point in time. You can learn to change it all around. It just takes learning how to create that mindset. And really that's what the book's about. And that's what my work's about. And the clinical hypnotherapy bit is very interesting as well, because it's much more scientific than people realize. It's not the stage stuff. So there's a lot in there about meditation and those types of therapies as well, and how you can do it and how you can utilize that part of your subconscious thinking to become successful or to overcome a trauma. And that's really where it goes.
Okay, so again, let's just keep on your business for a little bit longer and explore the types of clients or people that you get. And imagine you get people from all types.
Yeah, I mean, some people, because of the reputation that I've now got, it's like with anything, you start off primarily working as a psychotherapist with lots of mental health issues. So it would be things like anxiety, depression, PTSD, OCD, ADHD, all of these kind of labels that people are given, and they think there's something wrong with them. They don't know what to do, so they come and see me. But through the years, you build a reputation, and you end up being known for being able to really sort of coach people through anything. So if you came to me and you said to me, I've got a bit of anxiety and depression, I really want to get through that, and I want to own my own business, we would primarily look at, first of all, working through the issue, focusing on whatever you want to achieve. So it's a very mixed approach, really. I feel like people misunderstand what therapy is about. They think that you have to be in the depths of despair. And I suppose that's what draws a lot of people in. But actually, I want to make that point. And I do work with a lot of people that sometimes it's just about getting them on the road they want to be on, not because they're in a desperate place, more because they want to know how to get to a better place as well. So very much with what you do with people's bodies, I'll do with their mind. I always say it's like muscle building for the brain.
Yeah, well, one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you onto the show is because as a coach, part of my role is to work with a mindset, and yeah, okay,
Yes.
physically I can get them in shape, but there's a lot of mind control, a lot of mindset to get to that, and so we do the similar things, but in different industries.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. So you just touched on a point really, which was interesting as well, and it's where you said you take people forward. So potentially, you could have somebody that they don't have any issues, and they just want to excel maybe at something, and they could have, they could be doing great already, but they just want to do even better.
Sure, because the way I see it is this: don't look at self-improvement as something you do when you're in a bad place. Look at it as a continuous curve, because self-improvement really should be a continuous curve. Because if you make 1 million, you don't just go, let's think of it in financial terms, you don't just go, oh, I've got 1 million now. Actually, people that reach that level of finance go, oh, actually, now I've made 1 million, I know I can make 2 million, I can make 3 million, I can make, and they continue on that journey. They carry on building businesses, and they carry on looking at ways that they can continue to make money. And it's like that with ourselves. We should look at that as a, look, I got to this point, now I want to get to the next point. And actually what I do really is untangle the past and then future map, because sometimes it's the past experiences. So let me explain that a bit more, and you'll relate to this, being the sort of bodybuilding coach. When somebody has had a trauma or a belief system that's become almost solid in their brain, and I say that because when we have experiences, our neurons in our brains fire, they connect and they create pathways. So effectively our brain wires and creates circuits and associations. And when that's being repeated so many times, it becomes unconscious thought habits. So we no longer, if you think about learning to drive, at first it's a real effort to learn to drive, and then before you know it, a year after you've passed your test, you're doing it without thinking about it, because it's become unconscious. You now automatically do that thing. Well, that's the same with many, many different things that we experience in life. And the way the brain works is that when we have a thought, we also have an associated chemical, which will be a neurochemical or a neurohormone that is released. So we think and then we feel, and that is all a very subconscious thing. So when people come here, we've got to untangle those pathways and unwire them, and then we can focus on building the new ones. Now, the key there is repetition. Through repetition, whether it be with muscle or with neuro pathways and neurocircuits, they will become wider, stronger with repetition. So if you want to be a millionaire, you can definitely be a millionaire. First of all, though, you've got to untangle all those unconscious beliefs that are negative before you can start rewiring. So it doesn't matter what somebody wants to achieve with me. The process will be the same. You might want to lose weight. The process is the same. You won't want to be a millionaire. The process is the same. It's all about untangling and then rewiring. And so there are specific steps that you will take, just like with bodybuilding, to achieve a certain body aesthetic. It's the same with the brain. So it's very, very similar. And you're right about mindset. The difficulty is, and I suppose you'll notice this, is that with the bodybuilding world, you're not necessarily qualified, though you're probably very skilled at it, to be able to delve into the deepest parts of someone's trauma or their pain that holds them back. And that's where these sort of things can really complement each other.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that part of the reason why I'm doing these podcasts is because I understand it's not just about going in a gym and lifting some weights up. There's far more to this than if you want to be successful on that journey, which is the kind of theme what we're talking about here, and there's a lot more to this, and you've already touched on quite a few things already, and around the neurochemicals in the brain, mindset, and so this is the reason why I'm bringing people like yourself, experts in these fields, so that we can explore these areas and understand how I like the word that you use, self-improvement. That's a huge word, I think, which and it kind of rings a bell with me, because I think I always treat success. I think that can be tied up with self-improvement.
Sure.
Yeah. So that word self-improvement really rings true for me. So I think that we all want to self-improve. Surely we all want to be successful, and I think there's definitely it's up in my mind already. Just a short, brief conversation with you to kind of even how can that even apply to myself? So we're already touching on a lot of interesting things.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is as well is that the word success almost brings up a perception to many people about what success means. So when you break it down into self-improvement, every step you take is a success. But what we've been flooded with, particularly with social media and the media as a whole, is this idea that success means, I used money as an example there, but that success means you're rich, success means you've got the best cars, the best looking body, the best looking house. Actually, success isn't about that. Success, a bit like happiness, is a perception. My idea of success is going to be different to yours, because it's about personal improvement. And so personal improvement, like anything, is very unique to you as an individual. But we're brainwashed as a society to believe that we're not successful if we're not like her or him over there. We're made to believe that we have to have this certain aesthetic, and I don't mean physical aesthetic, I just mean the house, the car, the wife, the kids, the money, and actually if we don't have that, we label ourselves as unsuccessful. But what if your success at this point in time is getting out of bed every day? That's a success. Then you can take it to the next level of, okay, I've got out of bed, now I'm going to learn something new, I'm going to do an online course. You've completed the online course, that's a success. Each step is a success. So we need to break down that word and look at it in fragments, a bit like pieces of a puzzle. Your puzzle, to reach your level of what you choose to be success, could be 1,000 pieces. Somebody else's could be 10. And we have to take that on board as well. So when you're doing coaching with people, I'm sure you've had this experience. Some people will want to do the shows where they get on stage. Some people will want to lose a bit of weight. Some people will want to put some weight on. And each of those things is a unique experience and a unique idea of what success is. So I think that's what really interests me about this subject, is that when people tell me that they're not successful, and then I start to untangle their lives, I think, well, actually, what you've got is somebody else's perception of success. So what are we basing our ideas of success on? Is it the music videos? Is it the reality shows? Is it the fact that we're comparing ourselves? Or do we know what success means to us? Because again, depending on your experiences in life so far, I suppose it's also the pressure and the conditioning, like what your parents make you feel is a success. If your parents earn a certain amount of money, they might think you're not a success and tell you you're not a success until you do the same.
Yeah, I think we're all pre-programmed as children, aren't we? Being brought up, our major influences are obviously our parents, our teachers,
Yes.
and we're pre-programmed by those people. And
Yeah.
I suppose I'm a good example of that, because I was pre-programmed almost. My mum wanted me to go to university. My mum wanted me to get a degree and get a good job, and that's what I felt that I wanted, and that's what I followed that programming. And I did go to university. I kind of followed that, and my idea of success when leaving university was to get a job, get a wife, have a child, and a house. And I pretty much got all of those by the time I was 25, 26, and I felt like I'd achieved everything. But the funny thing is that all turned wrong. It wasn't the right person that I got married to. And, so my trauma in my life, it kind of felt like it got success, and then it led to, it wasn't success. I'd gone not necessarily with the right person, made the right choices. And so for me, my life changed at that point. And then I asked, or people just asked me, what is it that you want out of life? And I think at that present point in time, I said, my answer was, I just want to be happy. And I think that's what we need to explore. I think when you ask someone what is success, because we all want success. I think we all want to be successful or feel successful, or we chase things like money. Some people chase fame or power, education, relationships, and a thousand other things. But then, do any of us ever ask the question, well, what are we trying to, what are we trying to actually get from that? Because what does it mean? What is success? And it wasn't until
important.
And I think it wasn't for me until I'd gone through those things. I'd got in the slipstream of that pre-programming, gone on what I thought was my success, and then actually, it's not that it wasn't what I wanted, because it's still, I've got that now, and that for me is a success. I've got a happy relationship and a home, etc. And I think that is key for me in my own personal. That's what I want, is a secure family and a home, and I've managed to do that. But in that gap between, in my trauma in my life, in that gap, it was always, I want to be happy, and I had to try to find what made me happy. And I think that's the key to drive success, is what the things that make you happy, isn't it? And I think that's I think you touched on it. What isn't success, I think, is really what you try to explain is. And that's what the pre-programming, or the girl with the lovely bum that the females now want to look like, or the guy who's got the six-pack abs, or whatever that is, and you try and follow those. And if I relate this to bodybuilding, I get a lot of clients that say, I want to look like this, or I want to do this, and then you get a couple of different reactions to that response over time, and they don't understand. And I'm going to let you talk about this in a minute, because I know you're going to know far more than me. But they've dived into this because they think, so let's just take the bodybuilding arena as an example. So I get a client, a female or a male, that says, I want to get on stage. I want to look like this person or that person. And then I say, okay, good. I would, me personally, now as a good coach, I've done it for a while, I try to ask them, why are you doing this? Because do you understand the effort, the time, all these things you've got to put into this? Because if it's a case of you just want to do this because you want to do, you want a chance of looking the best, feeling the best you've ever done, and that's fine. If you want to be the most successful bodybuilder, or be at the top of the game, and be the most successful bikini competitor ever, then that's a different matter. And there's a completely different ball game for getting on stage once, or getting on stage multiple times and making a profession out of it. And I think I think, and you'll apply this to any walk of business or life, and I'll let you talk in a second. But I think it's understanding the steps that you need to take in order to be successful at that, and understanding, is it really what I wanted? Because I know that some people think it's what they want, and they'll start on it and then didn't actually realize that it was this hard. Oh my God, I didn't realize that I have to diet, or I have to work hard in the gym, or get up at 6 in the morning and not get to bed till 1 o'clock in the morning, and have to do that for long periods of time. That they would have assumed potentially that, oh, I just need to go to the gym twice a week and eat some green vegetables or whatever it is. A misconception. They went into it blind. They hadn't planned it out. They hadn't thought about it, and then they become what they think is a failure because they've spent time on it and didn't succeed at that. So sorry, I've took over. I'll let you talk.
No, you're absolutely right on every single point, and it's interesting because obviously you're seeing it and you're aware of it, but actually breaking that down. So there's a couple of points that I'm picking up on as you speak. One is that with your own story, although actually you did want to be married and have the house and have the kid and everything else, I think when you were that age, because between the ages of about 0 to 5, 0 to 7, we're at our most malleable in terms of our brain formation. So actually what a lot of people don't know is that our brainwave activity is very, very, very slow. It's at theta level. Not that that's interesting to everybody, but just in case you want to Google it, we have theta brainwave activity when we're very, very young children. And because our brainwave activity is so slow, more information can go in. As it speeds up and as we've got more to deal with, we find it harder to retain information. So as very small children, we're like sponges because our brainwave activity is so low. So it's very easy to form a child the way you want them to be. And we become conditioned, like you say, by our parents. So what we do as young adults is we tick a few boxes based on the guidelines that we've been given. They're unconscious box ticking exercises, but we do it because we know that that's what success looks like to our parents or looks like to the people around us, our teachers. We want to please, because from very small children, that's what we're encouraged to do. If you're a good boy, you'll get a lollipop. If you're a bad girl, you're sent to your, so we learn the reward system, so we tick the boxes. Then we realize, oh, I ticked those boxes without fully understanding myself. And we learn from that mistake. And then we start to go a bit deeper within. Who am I? What do I want? What makes me feel happy? And interestingly enough, the word you used was, we chase certain things in order to feel happy. And that's really interesting. That's the other point I wanted to make. When we're chasing something, this is so important, we're actually running away from ourselves. If we're chasing after the dream job, the dream woman, the dream anything, we're actually running away from our true selves, and we're trying to please the ego. Oh, I've got the best looking girl, that means I'm special. I've got the best job, that means I'm clever and successful. So when we're chasing something, we're avoiding ourselves. True happiness is when you can face yourself, warts and all, and you can say, I'm okay with that. And that's where you really build from. And that's why I say to you before, when you work with people to coach them, in my capacity anyway, dealing with mental health or, life improvement, you have to get them to face their true selves. And the reason for that is because, as you say, if someone says, I want to be that person that stands on the stage, have the good body, what they're saying is, I want to validate myself by getting the applause when I'm on stage. Yeah. And because they're chasing the validation and because they're trying to please the ego, when it comes down to it, because success comes with sacrifice, actually, the validation that they're seeking, they realize it's too much of a sacrifice to seek that validation. So they'll give up and then they'll go somewhere else to seek validation, which is why I bring it back to that point. If you can't validate yourself and you can't love yourself exactly as you are, where you're at, you will never be successful. You will always chase something that looks like success to get validation and approval. And that's why when you said to me then about being a bodybuilder professionally and continuing to do it as a lifestyle, that comes with a lot of sacrifice. That's no longer about, although validation may be a part of it, it's no longer about validation and ego. It's more about the satisfaction of achieving the goal, the satisfaction of improving yourself, but that in itself can become addicted as well. So we have to be comfortable with ourselves. If you're a bodybuilder, I know that there's the whole bulking and shredding process. And that's the thing that people don't realize. You actually have to sometimes be a bit fluffy for a while before you can shred back. So you've got to go through a stage you perhaps don't like. And that's what success is. You have to go through stages you do not like to get the result. And when we look at MTV and Beyonce and Jay-Z and Kim Kardashian, what we see is the finished product, the top layer. What we don't see is the discomfort, the bits they've had to sacrifice, the bits they've had to give up. And it's the same for me. Funny enough, this is a silly little example, but I drive a crappy Toyota Aygo. And everyone's always surprised when they see the car because, you know, I've got the business, I own the building where the business is, I've written a book, I've got my online business, I've got my patients, and I work 14, 15 hours a day. So people go, oh, you should have a nice car. And I say, but I want to reinvest my money, and cars depreciate in value. So what I do when I get money is I put it back into the business. I sacrifice the nice car in order to have the job and the lifestyle that I love. So people assume a lot about, you know, people that own businesses or people that present a certain way. They don't see the fact that I work 14, 15 hours a day, that I don't go to bed till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and then I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. They don't see that I don't get the option to go to the gym as much as I want because I'm always working. But that's the sort of sacrifice you make. I do go to the gym, I do work out at home, but I can't go to the gym as much as somebody else can go to the gym. And I've had to give up certain things like a social life. I don't socialize as much as other people do. But you see, what I say to people is when you love what you do, you choose it. It's no longer a problem, but that means that you have to give up other things. So success is about letting go of things that you perhaps still want to have and you're not ready to give up yet. You have to learn to go through the pain barriers.
This is a really important topic because for me, I can relate to this very, very much in myself, but also it's something that clients have to try and find the answer to that. And it's so I have lots of clients, and I don't just have competitors. I have clients who just generally want to feel better, and so, you know, and feel better just health wise, and maybe just lose a couple of pounds, but want to feel fit or whatever. So I've got a broad kind of array of clients, and so you've touched on a few things for me which are really kind of important and extreme levels. I see myself in the same level as you of sacrifice.
Yes.
And some of the things that you've said is I don't socialize. I've almost lost quite a lot of friendships because they never bother, you know, to ask me to go out anymore because I don't go out. You know, all these sacrifices are put in place because I do something that I truly enjoy doing. Now, one of my questions to you would be is how is there a borderline of when it becomes an obsession over a kind of because sometimes I question, am I too obsessed, or because sometimes when you're super tired or potentially you didn't get invited to something that you wanted to go to, or I don't know, is this, you know, you're always going to ask yourself the question, am I too focused? Have I lost certain things that I should have done? Is life for living, or am I doing this? Am I actually working or living? And there's a lot of, sometimes I do ask myself these questions. Am I working too much? Have I got enough balance? So I'm sure you probably asked the same, but my question really is there a point where we become obsessed or obsessive or do too much and lose that balance?
Definitely, it can tip over. I think the way that you know it's tipped over is when you resent going in to see your clients, or when you resent, like, and I don't just mean, oh, I can't be bothered. I mean, when you really start to feel like, I really don't want to do this anymore. Because obsession, again, is perception. So I say to people when they say, oh, I think you are, you work too much. It's almost like you're addicted to work. And I say, but I love my work the way you love going to a nightclub. So how you feel about going out and getting ready and having a drink and dancing, that's how I feel about going to work. And I say, if ever I get to the point where I start to resent it and I start to feel like I'm missing out, and I mean consistently missing out, then I know I need to change the balance. So that's a very difficult one, because on paper, people would say, if you're working 14 hours a day, you're working too much. But you're only working too much if you do something you don't like. Yeah. 14 hours a day of doing something you don't like is hell. 14 hours a day of doing something that you feel passionate about is joy. So you could argue that perhaps I'm so much into the habit of this that I've forgotten what it feels like. But I am very driven. So like when I was very successful as a therapist, I didn't want it to stop there. I wanted to then have the integrative health side of it, because I love the connection between the brain and the body. So then I did that. And then when I did that, I wanted to reach a wider audience. So I started to create the course. Then I wanted to make a sort of shorter available option to those people that didn't want to do a whole course. And that's when I started developing mental health resources. That's when I decided to do the book. And at no point did I think, oh, I'd much rather be in the pub having a drink, or I'd much rather be going to my friend's party. So that's how I know that I'm in balance, because I feel aligned and I feel drawn. And it's almost like what I choose is my magnet. I feel drawn to it. I don't feel drawn to other things. And the problem is with society, and this is where a lot of people, I mentioned validation and approval before. So many people are so reliant, perhaps because of their conditioning, on the opinions of other people, that they actually lose themselves. And again, that's why I say you have to do the untangling process. You have to face yourself and know yourself, because otherwise you will always be swayed by someone saying you work too much, or you don't socialize enough, or you don't relax enough. And so because you don't know yourself, you're like, oh, maybe I do. And then you make decisions based on what other people think and what other people say. And then you resent them. And you go, oh, they made me feel this way. No, they didn't make you feel that way. You didn't take the time to get to know yourself. Because if you truly knew yourself, you wouldn't be swayed in that direction in the first place. Yeah. And that's because of not understanding yourself. So someone might say, well, okay, so how do you change that? How do you change going from being that person that doesn't know themselves to being the person that can really chase their dreams and find out because some people don't even know what their dreams are. So how do you do that? First of all, you have to untangle. So you go through, in my work particularly, you go through a couple of hours of really exploring someone's history. And I always see that part of it for me like a hazard perception test. You know, you take your hazard perception before you take your driving test. You're looking out for all the like little possible hazards, and you're reflecting them back to the client. And for me, I start to go, oh, that's an amygdala issue. By the way, the amygdala is the fear response. Oh, that's a habit issue. Oh, you've got a vivid imagination. That's why you are going off on a tangent over there. Oh, your dad was abusive. That's why you've learned to have these negative relationships with men. So you're looking for all these little hazards. And then what you're doing is you're going, okay, so what is it you like about yourself? And people will really struggle with that. But we write down 3 or 4 things. What is it you don't like? And we write down usually more things that they don't like. And so then we start to go, okay, so what of these are your opinions and what are other people's opinions? So you start to break it down. Then what you do, once you've broken it down and you've got maybe 3 issues that people really want to work on, as in the things they don't like and the 3 things they really want to enhance, you start doing the work where you get them to focus on the bits they want to enhance by using visualization techniques. And just a very brief reason why that's important, because people go, visualization, but the brain doesn't know the difference between a real experience and an imagined experience. There was a experiment done some time ago with 2 groups of people learning to play the piano. One was asked to repeat a key sequence on the piano over and over again for 2 hours a day for 5 days. The other group was asked to memorize that key sequence and imagine it, visualize it in their head for 2 hours a day, every day for 5 days. Both groups were scanned at the end, and the neurocircuitry was almost identical. So the brain had actually fired and wired in almost an identical way over the visualization as it had the actual playing the piano. So we know that the brain is capable of believing that an event's already happened just by visualizing it. So if you wanted to, you could create the body you want up here first and then do the exercises that it takes to get there. But your brain has to repeat that over and over again to wire. Once it wires, once the neurological pathways form and become embedded, they become automatic thoughts. So visualization is a massive key to success. All athletes do it. You know, like you think of a race, they imagine themselves winning the race. They do that over and over again, as well as the physical part of the training, so their brain knows that they can do it. Because if there's any sense of I can't do this, your brain is wired in that habit and you need to change that habit. So that's where you break it down and then you start to know what you need to do and where you need to focus their attention. So it's a massive part of success. It's up here first.
So obviously there's lots of techniques for that, and do you want to talk about some of them? Because it's, you know, people use boards and you know lots. Should we just talk about that briefly? Because I think that's something that a lot of people are aware of, but like you said, you kind of went, oh, visualization. Because that's what people's response is going to be about it. But I think I know it works, and you know, and I know that you know it works because it's what you do. So let's just talk about some of those ways that people can do that.
Okay, so first, before I explain how to do it, I have to explain why the first bit of visualization is really important as well. So our brain is interesting in the sense that 90% of it is subconscious thinking, 10% is conscious thinking, and 5% of that 10% of conscious thinking is the analytical mind. Now, the analytical mind is the problem bit, because we're different to animals in the sense that we have the cortex, which is the thinking part of the brain. Animals have the feeling part of the brain. So they exist very much in the moment. They don't, you know, if a deer's grazing and an antelope chases it, it will go into the fight-flight response. But then 15 minutes later, when it achieves homeostasis, which is balance, it will go back to grazing. Whereas we as humans would think about the event that's just happened and we'd stay in that fight-flight response. So to use visualization effectively, you have to bypass the analytical mind and you have to bypass the emotional mind. So you have to slow brainwave activity down. Earlier on, I mentioned how children have got very naturally slow brainwave activity. So you can do that in several ways. Obviously, I use, as a clinical hypnotherapist, I use guided meditation techniques to get someone to slow brainwave activity down. And in my clinic, I've got a headband with brain scanning pads on, and you can actually see the brainwave activity going down. So for people that are dubious and think, oh, that sounds like a load of rubbish, brainwave activity naturally slows down when we go to sleep. It naturally slows down when we're daydreaming or when we're watching a film or when we're listening to calming music. It actually does happen and it can be measured. I just speed that up by guiding somebody through a structured process. But if you don't like guided meditations or hypnotherapy, what you can do is a very basic breathing technique for 5 minutes with your eyes closed in a quiet space. And the breathing technique is so easy, but you have to be consistent with it. So it's inhale for 4 seconds, pause for 4 seconds, and exhale for 4 seconds. You do that for 5 minutes, like I say, eyes closed in a quiet room. You can either lie down or sit down. And then previous to doing that, you need to write down on a piece of paper what you want to achieve in your visualization. So for someone that wants to pass their driving test, they write down, I want to pass my driving test with no minors. I want to be confident. I want my body language to be relaxed. I want to remember to do the checks. They create the visualization. They do the breathing technique for 5 minutes, and then they bring the visualization in and they focus on that visualization for 1 or 2 minutes. So I'd set a timer for 10 minutes in total. And then they do that every single day for a period of, say, 3 weeks. It takes approximately 21 repetitions to create the pathway as a solid automatic pathway. It takes 90 repetitions for it to become a subconscious thought. So within 3 weeks of doing that every day for 10 minutes, you would create the neuro pathway as a solid pathway, and you've created a new habit way of thinking. So that's why it's important to slow the brain down, because by calming the brainwave activity, by slowing it down, you bypass the analytical brain. But like with anything, it takes practice. And so people do it for a couple of days. Oh, I don't feel any different. And they give up. But it's like going to the gym for 2 days and going, oh, I've not got big muscles yet, and then giving up. It's the same principle. It's about consistency. And that's what success comes down to. It's, say, to reach your place of success, you've got to take 20 steps. You've got to do each step consistently for a long period of time before you can move on to the next step and the next step and the next step. So it is a process. And if you, again, go back to that point, if you are not prepared to sacrifice and to really put that effort in, what you're actually seeking isn't success, it's approval and validation, and it's pleasing the ego. Success has nothing to do with validation and nothing to do with ego. It's to do with accomplishment, and it's to do with finding your inner joy. So the visualization bit is key. And also being really conscious. I say this a lot when I do my own videos, being consciously aware of what you're thinking. So the key to this is make the unconscious conscious. If you notice, for example, that you're always angry, write down, what am I thinking when I'm angry? Oh, I'm thinking life's not fair. Someone's, getting paid more than me at work, or whatever it is. And you start to see a sequence of thoughts. And then I say to people, you've got to challenge those thoughts, because they might be based on your conditioning rather than on the actual reality. And really important point here, and I have to break this down with a lot of people. This is an actual fact. 50% of memory is perception of that event rather than the actual facts of that event, because you could have 3 people in a room and each one will have a slightly different take on what happened based on their perception. So when we're working with memories and conditioning, and then we're applying that conditioning to the here and now, what we're doing is, 1, we're living in the past. We don't realize we're doing it, but we are. And 2, we're basing the here and now on 50% perception, which means that it's all an illusion anyway. So we have to recreate the self by knowing the self and knowing the mechanics of the brain and knowing that everything comes with sacrifice. When we see social media, when we see even you, because your pictures are obviously when, to show your success, that's the final part. They haven't seen the journey. And so people go, I can do that then, he can do it, I can do it. But they don't know that you've been doing this for years and you've given up your whole life really to do this. So success really is sacrifice, but it's also perception.
Okay, so what's interesting as well here is modern day life. Obviously now we touched on it before, but everyone's busy nowadays. Even children seem to be busy with social media or whatever. We don't ever seem to have any of that almost natural downtime of how many people go and sit in the back garden and just listen to the birds singing, or appreciate the I don't know, the sunlight or sunset. And it's very frequent, very infrequent that people do that nowadays. And more they probably sat outside and a shooting star can go past, or a meteorite, and they're on the phone looking at Instagram instead. So if we're in this society then of busyness, and are you seeing, let me try and phrase it where I'm trying to get to, could we have a demographic or a situation where people are less successful nowadays because we're not having those meditation moments or time to visualize or think, and because we are so busy, are we getting less and less people achieving things in life? Is that something that you're seeing? I don't know. Is there a correlation that you can come across and see that certainly amongst younger people? I don't know.
I think what we're seeing is, rather than more success, if I think about some real key characters on social media, that have got a lot of following, what we're seeing is that they themselves probably don't even realize they're doing it, but they are probably addicted to the validation. So a lot of people now will say, I want to be a public figure, and I'll be like, okay, why? Because I want to be successful. Okay, what does that mean? Being a public figure and being successful don't necessarily mean the same thing, because you can take a photo of yourself with a Rolex on and actually not own the role, you know, but people believe you own the Rolex, and so they want that as well. Well, they don't realize that half of it is fake anyway. So I see a lot of misconceptions about what success is. You're absolutely right. That the way that kids are programmed now is that they're on their phones. Now, this can be a good and a bad thing. So if I look at this from the wider perspective, I am outside for an hour a day, at least every day, just being present in the moment. I love nothing more than being outside in nature. It's my favorite place. I'd be there all the time if I could, but I can't because life doesn't allow it. But I make that time. And what has always made me laugh is when people go, oh, I downloaded this brilliant app. You just put it on and you listen to nature sounds. And I'm like, you know, you can just go outside your door and do that, because that's what, you know, that's out there. So they're like, oh, yeah. So I train people to go to a more natural approach, because you are missing out on those moments. Like you say, something can go, a beautiful animal, like a little woodpecker, or, you know, you could see a little otter in the river and miss it because you're walking like that. They're the magical moments. Now, because even teachers and the education system is a massive problem. The education system teaches our children to be stressed, and so they are firing these neurohormones and neurochemicals such as adrenaline and stress. Now, adrenaline, you'll know this because of your training, and you know you have to be very specific with sleep and what you eat and everything else. Adrenaline and cortisol in particular, that's your stress hormone. They are like corrosive agents, and what they do is they create acid in your body, and they create inflammation, because where there's acid, there's inflammation. Where there's inflammation and acid, there is disease. So our children are fatigued, they have joint aches, they are going through like periods of low immunity because their bodies are having to fight harder just to stay alive. They are feeling like they're not good enough because their teachers have made them feel like they're not good enough. The teachers, by the way, don't mean to do that, but the way the government's set up is that they have to tick boxes. We spoke about box ticking earlier. So, of course, by the time they leave school, they are drained. They are frazzled. They've been told, if you don't pass your GCSEs, you will never make it. By the way, all the entrepreneurs I know didn't have any GCSEs, or very few. They're told that you'll never get to university. Like university is the only option. Actually, it's not. And so it's also based on memorization. This is where I say the phones can be a good thing. We don't need to memorize the periodic table or the algebra, because if we want to learn it, we can just put our phone and go, oh, that's what it is. If we choose to learn it. What they're not teaching children is mindset, how to be successful, sacrifices, how to cope with stress, how to deal with building up your emotional resilience, how to cope with rejection, how to aim for self-love rather than validation. So children are coming out of school frazzled, and that's why they then, I don't want to use the word fail, but that's why they then don't have the ability. They haven't actually got the mindset to go further and become more successful. And guess what they do? They turn to alcohol, they turn to food, they turn to sex, even online shopping, whatever it is, gambling, to escape themselves. And that's where we're seeing less real success and more pressure and more. Did you know that, for example, UK, we work the longest hours, but we are the least productive. In the whole of Europe, we're the least productive, but we work the most hours. That just tells you how we've got the mindset wrong.
So, I mean, I know mindset is such a massive thing in my sport and what I do. I always try to teach mindset as most things can be overcome by the mind, and we can put barriers in place and say we can't do this or we can't do that, or I'm not good enough, or and it is mindset. So we're actually I know this is going to mindset. I'm sure you could talk about mindset for quite a long time. So I don't want to keep you over time. So we've got about 10 minutes left.
Okay.
So should we talk about mindset a little bit then in those 10 minutes?
Yeah, sure. Now, mindset's so important because mindset really, I don't know if you agree with this, but it's about balance. So what people often try and do is they try to aim for positive, or they try to escape negative. What they don't realize is positive is not maintainable all the time, and negative's not realistic all the time either. So mindset is about achieving balance. And when we talk about what balance is, we have to look at our behaviors. So for example, you mentioned earlier, am I obsessed with work? No, you love it. But I think there is a balance in your life because you've got your family and you've got a job that you love and you've got the home that you love and you've created that balance. But how did you get there? You probably had to get there by experiencing some, well, we know you did because you talked about your marriage failing before. You had to experience some pain, right? Two things could have happened there. You could have had that pain and gone, oh, life is so hard. Or you could examine that pain. This is what mindset is. Mindset is an examination of our situation. It's looking at evidence rather than opinions. It's saying, okay, so my marriage broke down. What actually happened there? Let me examine that situation so that I can learn from it and I can create something that is going to be beneficial to me from that. In other words, you might have learned not to speak to someone in a certain way. You might have learned not to be spoken to in a certain way. So mindset is about the shift from it's either good or it's bad to how do I use this experience and how do I learn from this experience and how do I then use that as a stepping stone to the next experience. And it's removing expectation. Because sometimes mindset is about, I want this, and if it doesn't happen, I'm a failure. But if you have good intentions and you're willing to work towards that intention, rather than having an expectation, therefore being a failure when that doesn't happen, then again, we've got more of a balance. So mindset, to achieve mindset, you have to understand where you're perhaps beating yourself up and not using those experiences as a valuable platform to move forward.
So just before you go on there, so mindset for me, it requires a certain amount of strength or energy or effort, and because often the circumstances where you need mindset is when you're vulnerable or at a weaker point, or you've had trauma, and so it's almost a very fragile point at which most people, like you said, and I considered it myself, but it wasn't an option, was to resort to alcohol or go out partying and forget about things and take the easy option.
Yeah.
Where does that natural strength come from to find the composure of mindset almost? Where does that come from?
Well, first of all, we all have a natural resilience. As babies, just to hold our head up is an effort, but we do it. Just to walk is an effort. If you look at a toddler, they'll fall over 10 times, but they'll keep going. The problem comes when we start to apply the idea of failure. So a toddler doesn't fall over and go, oh, I'm a failure, I'm giving up. They're more like animals in that sense. They just get up and they carry on. So what I do with mindset is I remind people of that natural inborn resilience, that natural desire to be the kid that can walk, that can run, that can draw, that can write. We all start off not being able to do those things, and we all manage to do them. And I'll always get people to refer back to a time when something bad happened and they got through it. And then they go, oh yeah, I broke my leg in 3 places. I was in a wheelchair for a year and I got through that. And you go, okay, so you've done it before, you can do it again. But we have to examine it. We have to say, so let me look at this situation that you think has broken you. Or let me look at this situation that you think you can't reach. Let's examine it. And what you always find is that they go back to past experiences where they failed before, or where someone's told them they're not good enough. So with mindset, it's so important to talk about what's going on in your head. You have to tell someone, even if it's just a case of saying, look, I'm feeling this way, like I'm going to need a drink. Because someone will either say to you, why do you feel that way? Or they'll say, look, you need to go and get help. Coaching for me, for you, I have to have a coach. You probably have to be coached at some point in some capacity. Coaching is the way that you build mindset, because yes, you know, you've got a natural inborn resilience, but sometimes you need reminding of that. And if you haven't got, if your people around you, and these are friends and family sometimes, if they're not talking to you and encouraging you, it's probably because they're insecure and they want to keep you at their emotional mindset. So sometimes it's about, how do I get stronger? I have to focus on me. I have to be, what I always say is self-full, but other people call it selfish. You have to be prepared to be selfish or self-full in order to build yourself up. So it is that natural determination that we have. The reason that people don't tap into it is because they're encouraged not to. The reason they're encouraged not to is because other people want to keep you at their level so that they feel better about their lives. So that's where I say the examination of what's going on is so important to build the mindset back up.
Yeah. A few pennies have dropped there for me personally through experience with clients and things. And I think the control thing from other people, the external control, I understand that. But I think the penny dropped really from the self, going back to the self-improvement point, and then examining the kind of the initial point of where things maybe started to go wrong.
Yeah.
And I think now for me as a coach, when I'm trying to coach people, it's almost, I can understand why now some people understand what I'm trying to talk about and acknowledge it and go forward, and others, it's like flogging a dead horse sometimes, and they're not, because I'm not taking the same approach. I'm not a trained psychologist, and I'm not trained like you, but if this is for me, I'm starting to put the two and two together and understand why it's not just a case of me saying it's mindset. There are a few other things that need to take on board, and one of the things I was going to talk to you about is I can see a lot of overlap for coaching from what I do. As a coach, what I do is, regardless of what their goal is, if I'm responsible for improving their physique, changing whether they want to grow muscle or lose fat or get stronger, whatever that kind of physique goal is, part of my responsibility to them is to ensure that we don't do anything that's harmful to their health.
Yes.
And so I take a lot of biofeedback weekly from all my clients and try to understand, energy levels, kind of mindset levels, and mind focus, mindfulness, and I also take other things like health markers like blood pressure and other things. But there's a huge overlap from what we do, and I also track things like how much sunlight did you get, how much natural sunlight, all these kind of things, because they're important. I also do practice and encourage them to take meditation moments, time out, even walk barefooted in the garden, to get close to touch the earth, all these kind of things, because it is important. But potentially one of there's a touch point, particularly if I've got athletes where I can think there's a mindset issue or a historical issue that we could probably potentially work together. And there's an opportunity for me to send people your way, because I'm not trained at the same level in the issues that they've gotten. And it's where I'm glad we've had this conversation, because it has opened it up where I think those occasions will occur, and I'll say, you leave if they get it, then they'll get it, and they've got that natural. That's what, I can't remember the word that you used. The resilience, the determination,
and the tenacity, that inbuilt tenacity to know that I want to improve and I'm willing to do what it takes. That's the success mindset.
That's what we're talking about today. But others haven't. But that doesn't mean that they can't still be successful. And that's where we as coaches are critical in enabling those people to still, or guide them to be successful. And this is really what I want to draw out on this podcast, is because one of the reasons why I do my job. The old cliche is I do it because I enjoy helping people, and when I see people and send me messages, and one of the ladies who's joined in, Jenny, she wrote a lovely post the other day, and she sent me messages, about how amazing she's feeling, and she felt the best she's ever felt in 25 years. And for me, that's the kind of thing that touches me, and that's why I love doing what I do. Just like you, it must be amazing to someone, particularly, I would imagine, on a far extreme scale, comes to you in absolute tears, and probably, I'm sure you've even dealt with suicidal, to that almost low point, the lowest you can go, to bring their head above water, and to see them almost fly their own wings, or whatever the saying is. And
it's
that
so
must
important.
Yeah.
For me, I'm quite a spiritual person, really, in the sense that I believe that all energy is connected to each other. You draw in people that are, reflective of your own energy. And I believe that it's our job on earth, and it used to be more this way, a few years ago, before the social media and before things got to where they are now, that we would connect with people, and we would, in communities, we would help each other, and we would exist together. And we're meant to do that, whether it be with animals, with nature, with whatever. We love the sunlight on our skin. We love to walk barefoot, but we also love to be of service, and to have a sense of purpose, and to have a sense of intention. And that's what really, that's the inside job. That's when you elevate yourself by elevating other people. It is a continuous journey in that sense. So for me, there's nothing more powerful than being available to serve someone, to help them to then pay that forward with other people, because they always do. Those people that get it, they always then go, oh, actually, I went to this therapist, or I went to see this coach. Perhaps you should try too. And you start to see this whole community of people paying it forward. And it's really powerful energy. And it's very, very healing for yourself as well. Like when you're coaching other people, really unconsciously you're coaching yourself at the same time. And I always say to people, look, with each person that I've worked with, and I've worked with thousands over the years, I've learned something from every single person. And I'm so privileged to be able to do that, and to have that experience, because I realise that it is a privilege to have people come to me and tell me their deepest pain, but also to see them grow through that pain and become what they wanted to become. So a final note, the untangling process, for those that feel like they cannot move forward, they just don't have the tools yet. They haven't untangled the sort of pain or the conditioning, and that's what's preventing them from creating that mindset. So you're right, the untangling process is often the bit that can actually make people believe that they can't do something, but everyone can. We all have magic. We've just got to untangle it to find it.
Yeah, I like that saying. I'm a big believer of paying it forward. I think it's just such a good thing to do. I think, and we should all kind of do that ourselves. Well, everyone should do it. And there's one other thing I wanted to say, just quickly, if I can. A lot of bodybuilding in particular, less so now because it's becoming so popular. It's becoming very, very popular to kind of do it. But I've been doing it for so long now, over 30 years, or 25 years. Throughout those years, people have got into bodybuilding before Instagram was around, before Facebook was around. And my experience of the reasons why those people were doing that was because of the pain involved. They'd done it to almost hurt themselves, or it was a I want to punish myself type thing. You know what I mean? It was a journey of escaping from something, or punishing yourself. And a lot of people still do that. It's masked now because it is popular, so you see all the people, just it looks good and it looks fun, but the deep down part of it, there is a lot of people that do it for different reasons. Could touch on other subjects, but we could talk about these for hours. But there's another thing that I want to draw to people's attention. It's around female bodybuilding. Most of the female bodybuilders I've come across have a story to tell. You know, a male bodybuilder is slightly different. It's natural, almost, for a man to go and lift weights. It's unnatural for a female to go grow muscle and try to be almost man-like.
Yeah.
And it's an area that I want to explore more. I've got my own federation, and it's something I want to explore more for the health minds of females moving forward, and try to understand that more. And that's something that potentially we could have more of a business relationship with.
Absolutely,
is understanding and helping those ladies a little bit more, because I do want to help them, and I want to make sure that we're doing the right thing and not necessarily the wrong thing for those people.
Yes, yeah, I understand that, because I do actually work with a lot of people that are either addicted to exercise, so they will do it even if they're exhausted, even if they're in pain, even if they're injured, and it is then, and I'm sure that's exactly what you mean in terms of bodybuilding for women, and to distort the body image to such a degree that it's a form of self-harm. It becomes a shield, just like being heavily overweight can be a shield, and just like being really, really skinny can be a shield. It becomes something that you're controlling rather than something that you're doing because you enjoy it. Now, that's not everybody, obviously, because some people do it because they do genuinely love the sport, like boxing, like karate, like athletics. It's a genuine love of the sport. But there are those that are harming themselves. And I guess it's the power that, especially for men, but also for women, it's a visible sign of strength if they've, and a lot of women have been in a position where they've not felt strong, or when someone has abused that. So they do it as a bit of an armor. But I do feel like the bodybuilders that I've worked with historically have often experienced some kind of abuse, whether it be extreme bullying or sexual abuse. And again, it's the way of becoming more powerful. And that's okay, because there's lots of things we do in life to become more powerful, as long as we start to understand it and balance it, and where we create the resilience, so that it's not just the external we're working on, it's the internal as well. I think that's the balance. The mind and the body are linked. We must work on both in order to achieve that balance. Okay,
brilliant. Now, so I don't want you to answer this because I don't want to put you under any pressure at all, but I really would like you to come back in a few months' time, maybe, and really pick up that subject in particular.
Sure.
I think that it's a niche subject, and I'd like to drill down right into that, and I think that would be very, very popular in my field. I wanted to talk broadly about success, because I think it's such an important thing, for everybody in every walk of life. We should try to understand what success is, which is what we've done today, and talk about that. And so really appreciate you coming on and doing that for me. It was a really, really enlightening talk for me. It was very, very useful for me, so I hope everybody else finds use in this as well.
Oh, good. Thank you for saying that.
Before we go, Ella, though, is there anything that you want to talk a little bit more about the business? Where can people find you? I mean, I've got the link to your website. We have actually got one question that we can answer before we go. But here's you can see underneath my chin is Ella's website. That's ellamccrystal.com. Now, is that the main place that people can go to and find all your services and businesses and links?
So everything's there. The book, by the way, the for anyone that's interested in the book, that is going to be pre-order, but the subscription list isn't available just yet. So it will be added to the website. And if you follow me on Instagram, which is similar to that, it's just at Ella McCrystal. I do regular updates on the other products and services, as well as the website. But I think my Instagram is even on that website, so that's the place to go.
Hang on, I can just do something a little bit quick, just to show people what your what your Instagram name is. I can do this, I think. Technology is at our disposal. Can I do it? Let me just take that off a second. There.
There you go.
So there is on Ella's side, that's her Instagram handle. Please follow her every day almost. She posts something interesting and enlightening, and yeah, so she's a great person to follow. We have got a quick question, so should we just capture that? It's actually from one of my athletes, Sarah. She goes to bed early, but is it all about the right mindset to be successful? Okay, so, or would you say it's 50-50 mindset and work ethic? So we have answered that a little bit.
Yeah, to recap on that though, I would say it starts with your mind first, because if your mind's not in the right place, you won't put the work in. So you have to really, I know for me, for example, like the more I work on this myself, the more successful I become, because I'm constantly revisiting. And it is a work in progress constantly, by the way. There will constantly be triggers here, there, and everywhere. And you have to be mindful. I always say, have an awareness, but don't overanalyze. So, for example, if I'm having a bad week, I've got to put that in perspective and say, I'm having a bad week. If that turns into a bad month, I need to revisit it and untangle it. So have the awareness, but not the over-analysis. They do say that over-analysis is paralysis, because you end up being stuck in this loop of thinking. So I say you definitely need to be aware of mindset and work on mindset in order to create the work ethic, because I certainly never started off being that person with that work ethic. So it definitely is mind first, and then it does become 50-50 in the end, because you don't have to constantly be plugging everything into mindset. It becomes a habit.
Okay, she's followed up with another question, which is similar, but it kind of, what she's asking is, can thinking ourselves better have a better outcome on our physical health? So
yes, it definitely does. If you know anything about the quantum physics side of things, so quantum psychology says, and this is just a bit sciencey, but it will answer it quickly. Before something is a particle, it's a pre-particle. It's called a subatomic atom. So what happens is a subatomic particle, sorry. So what happens is they can measure that in wave activity. It's called electromagnetic waves. So everything is potential. Okay. So when we think, we tap into that potential. And also, as I was talking about earlier with visualization, if you think yourself better, you will actually create the neuro wiring, the neuro pathways that tell your brain that you've already done it. It creates an experience before you've had the experience. When you know you've done something before, let's say like, you know, you've run a marathon before, your muscle memory is there, but also your brain's experience is there. So you know you can do it again. So if we can create that by thinking ourselves there already and wiring our brains around that experience already, our body will follow. And also on that note as well, the way we think creates the way we feel. The way we feel creates our energy output. If we think in terms of abundance and success, we attract people to us. We attract more of that energy to us, because they're called electromagnetic waves. They are magnets for other wavelengths at that level. So we must think it first. And a very short experiment was done. I think it was 1992. It was published. I think it was in the New Scientist magazine. And it was an exercise with 3 groups of people. One group did nothing. One group did a finger exercise to increase muscle strength. The other group visualized the fingers exercise, okay? Didn't actually do it. Not muscle mass, muscle strength. The group that did nothing, there was no muscle mass or no muscle strength. The group that exercised their finger, physically exercised, there was 30% increase in muscle strength. In the group that visualized the finger exercise, there was 22% increase in muscle strength. So just by thinking about it, by visualizing it, by applying the thinking and the feeling, really throwing themselves into that, they were able to create 22% muscle strength in their finger. And it was done with biceps as well. Now that shows that we can think our way into strength and also into abundance. So definitely think yourself better. That is definitely a mindset thing.
we can also do the opposite, can't we, and think ourselves unwell almost.
Yes, you definitely can. Like the whole hypochondriac thing, you know, that is a thing where you think you've got something wrong with you and you start to feel it, like, oh, I think I've got I don't know, cancer, and you start to feel cancer in your body before it's not even there. So we can definitely do it both ways. Everything starts in the brain.
Okay, brilliant. So there's a couple of people just saying thank you. So let's just put them up and then we'll say good night. Okay. So Jenny said very interesting. Thank you both. Thank you, Jenny. Verity, amazing talk. Thank you so much. Both of you are inspirational. Thank you, Verity. And then Desiree, great talk. Okay, so Ella, honestly, it's been a pleasure having you on. If you just stay backstage 2 seconds, I'm going to end it, and then I'll speak to you just in backstage before you go. So don't go anywhere. Okay, so everybody, thank you for joining in, and thank you for listening to Ella. It was a great conversation there. My next guest in a few weeks will be Compac. You can, if you don't know who they are, we'll add a post and you'll be able to see what they do. Great backstage and preparation for both men and women, stage preparation for men and women. Okay, so we'll see them in a couple of weeks, and thanks for joining. We'll see you soon.